Hi, Aries Sun and Rising. It's Raina here, and I want to give you three things to anticipate for the rest of 2025 that I think are important for your life. They're certainly not the only ones. And it also is important to note that the date of these transits are not necessarily going to correspond to when they are in these houses for you because everybody's chart is different. And when you're listening on YouTube to astrological transit readings, they're only doing general readings. They can't really look at your individual chart and see exactly what degree each house begins at. Okay, so just keep that in mind, and it still can provide a general overview because eventually these things will go into the houses in question. So the first thing is that Jupiter is going into Cancer on the 9th of June, and this is your fourth house of home as well as your family and real estate. So Jupiter is the great benefic planet. It definitely is seen like as a Santa Claus energy. It's giving us things, but it's expansion, it's growth. And so there could be an expansion in your household in some way. Yes, you may have a child if you're in that situation where you want to raise a family. There might be another little bundle of joy. However, it might be unexpected because maybe, like, if you have a sibling who can't take care of her child or whatever, that might be something that you do and you never had any intention of doing it. Maybe you didn't even think you wanted children, but you feel like you should do this, and then it turns out to be a blessing. Another way this can manifest is a fur baby. You might get more pets, but another way that the household can expand is the house itself, or the residence, whatever you want to call your living space. You may move into a bigger place. Even if we're talking about apartments here, it might be you know that you have a studio apartment now and then you get a one bedroom, or one bedroom and you get two bedrooms. And it's just bigger, it's nicer, and or maybe the land itself, you get land and that makes you feel like free because Jupiter can be associated with that. I even think like the world, Jupiter rules the ninth house in astrology under the sign of Sagittarius. So I always think of, long distance travel as a part of that. And so when Jupiter is in the fourth house, the world could become your home. Maybe that indicates that you're going to be doing a lot of traveling overseas. The second thing that I want you to know is that Uranus is going into Gemini on July 7th in your third house. So you have had Uranus in your second house, Aries, for many years. This may have impacted your finances. And sometimes this could be a really good thing where you get unexpected windfalls or unexpected um, raises, things like that. But some of you may have experienced a lot of erratic earning capacity where maybe it's feast or famine and you don't like that feeling of unpredictability. So for Uranus to go into the third house may be welcome news for some of you. The third house is Gemini's domain in astrology, so it can deal with anything having to do with the media, anything that we disseminate information from, and the media is, of course, our main source for that. But nowadays we have social media. We don't have the gigantic companies that used to kind of dominate everything. That's no longer the case. And some of these companies, even like not just print journalism, but even on the networks, they talk about their dwindling viewership or cable. But social media is the third house. So Uranus is about technology. So you may get into this field in some way and take advantage of it. And if you're not doing this already, this can be kind of this novel thing that you do. But who knows? It could have a big payoff. The third house is also the house of teaching and learning. This can be a time when you really become much more interested in unusual subjects to study. So that certainly, if it has some kind of spiritual component to it, then it might be parlayed into like a healing arts career at some point. Well, the third house is your mind. So you may be becoming more original in your thoughts. And this is really good for people that want, like, let's say, want to invent something. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Aquarius is an inventor, the sign of the inventor. I believe Thomas Edison was an Aquarius. So you may come up with some ingenious ideas during this transit. Anything that is, the third house can be connected to sales, and your Uranus being technology, you may, start an online business and you're doing all your sales online. The third thing I want to mention is that September is going to be seeing a big boost to your work sector with a solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo. Remember that a solar eclipse is a new moon times 3, it has been called, or on steroids, some people call it. And so the theme of new beginnings, I always include those. Sometimes astrologers I've listened to, they almost make it sound like a lunar eclipse. They almost make it sound like, okay, this area of life is going to have some shakeups, but they make it seem like it's an automatic ending. I just don't believe that, because I think that we have to look at it in terms of, what does it represent? Well, it is when the sun and moon are in conjunction, but in this case with the solar eclipse, it just adds that power to it and makes it more potent, power and potency. And in your work sector, this can have different possible effects. Maybe you're in between jobs and you've been looking for a job, and now it's like you have so many options, you're kind of like confused. Maybe for some people, this has to do with their work assignments, that they just are really going to be swamped. And the other thing, with in terms of health, is you could get this sudden influx of, potential healers that can help you if you've been struggling with anything or things of that nature. If you run a business, maybe you're able to get employees that can help you, and you weren't able to before. It wasn't that same kind of energy before. But it can be a boost somehow in the employment sector. And I also think, like, look at your daily routine which can involve all different things that you do. Some of you, there's a very popular type of, genre of YouTube videos about like my morning routine or whatever. Sometimes people do my evening routine. And the idea of a routine, that's been kind of foreign to me, having Neptune in the sixth house in my natal chart. So I feel like this can give a boost to people's productivity because sometimes, depending on what people tend to do in a day, they might be spinning their wheels. Not that you have to pack every, you know, living moment into some kind of productive thing, but I mean, like, just in terms of like looking at how time escapes you. Maybe there are some things that you're doing that you are doing at the wrong time and you would save time. And you may choose to adopt a new regimen, and this can involve many areas of life. This is the house of health and the work that you need to do during the day. And this could even include housework as well as whatever job that you have, if you have one. And like even like a passion project, because you may have something that you want to get off the ground, but you have a day job and you only have a certain amount of hours. And so rather than, want it in a month, you might say, you know what, if I do X amount of work on my passion project every night when I come home, instead of turning on the idiot box, which is what I affectionately call the TV, I will be able to carve out some time every day, and eventually my goal will be realized, and then everything will follow because I'll have laid down that foundation. And really, I'm not really, when I say foundation, that I would associate that more with Saturn. What I mean is setting things into motion, which just, even if things are not like completely day to day in the same order of what you're doing, you're just like at least starting from where you are. And they have that term, taking messy action. And that's kind of what I'm referring to. Of just getting the ball rolling. And the solar eclipse can really ignite that and prompt you to be intentional about the things in your day.